Welcome back, guys. This is episode 3 of the interactive guide to progressive metal. So I'm assuming because you're watching this video that you've already seen the past 2 episodes, but if you haven't, definitely go check those out because they're really important and it would give you a good idea as to how the format works. Don't forget that the full PDF of the chart is online, indevstudios.com. Go check that out. I finally got Tristan to upload it for me. Just don't forget to hit the download PDF button and wait a very long time because it's a massive file. A lot of bands on here, so here we go. The first episode was about Opeth, dark, cold, somber, and a little jazzy. The second episode was about Coheed and Cambria, a little poppy, a little punky, and very catchy. Today, however, this is where progressive metal starts to get a lot more intense and rhythmic and very djenty. The vocal styles are often influenced by most of the cores, like metalcore, and the instrumentation is a lot more distorted, almost a little robotic at times, focuses less on melody. This category also has a lot more harsh vocals, so you've been warned ahead of time. If that's not your cup of tea, then this category might not be for you, but go ahead and watch the whole episode and see what you think. Periphery is where I thought we'd start here. So Periphery has higher pitched mixed vocals that vary between harsh and clean, very catchy choruses, and some really crazy guitar work. As you will hear, this sound comes from a totally different place than the previous categories and doesn't share much commonality with the origins and past of progressive rock.
Shut the fuck up and let us live a life we can call our own. Leave it alone. If you love the guilt, then let it die. A life kept so clean. We'll measure.
And from here we find 4 subcategories that capture the different elements of Periphery. If you like the heaviness and intensity, I would recommend checking out Monuments. From Monuments, we can split into the band Veil of Maya, which has generally shorter songs and the more djenty style riffs, but it starts to branch into the more catchy and less progressive chorus.
When the chorus runs out,
If you like the beautiful choruses from Veil of Maya, I'd suggest listening to a band called Era. Next is a band you've probably never heard of that has a lot more electronic and glitchy sound and are criminally underrated, Archaon. Another child of Era is a very metalcore sounding band called Curses. Curses has one child with some of the heaviest, dirtiest, djentiest riffs that you've ever heard. They're called IAMONE. I want to say Iamone, but that's probably not right, so I'm just not going to say anything. Last one under era is the band called Shapist, who gives me a nostalgic feeling for my teenage years, while still managing to sound fresh and exciting.
Sinking into a world of deviation. Only time will tell if we'll survive the fall. Once it's gone, it's gone. Demons in the dark. All of our secrets.
I'd also recommend a newer band in the spotlight as of late called Spirit Box. You've probably heard of them by now, but if you haven't, then go check them out because they're hitting the scene really hard. Now they have two children, the first being a band from Tokyo called Earthists, who has some really captivating music. I actually put them on this list and then forgot about them. Then when I was looking on this list for the video, I actually got swept in listening to all their songs and just lost track of time completely. TesseracT is a band from Pakistan, another one of these hidden gems. I actually put a lot of those in this whole category. I didn't realize that until now. But this band will have you trying to create a mosh pit in your home office, and don't ask me how I know that.
The last time of the light reaction says your mind. I lost my feet. The form beneath me is never ending. It's getting my world has come undone.
When Born of Osiris... Cool. When Born of Osiris dropped their album Singularity, they changed the game. When they released Tomorrow We Die Alive, they set a precedent for how this subgenre should be handled. Next is The Northern, yet another band on this list you might not have heard of, but definitely worth a good listen. Last one under Veil of Maya is For the Likes of You, who has some of the nastiest breakdowns that words can't describe. And the second branch of Monuments finds us in Sikth. And the second branch of Monuments finds us in Sikth territory, where the djent is less apparent, but it's just full-on, balls to the wall intensity. Dillinger Escape Plan is our first natural progression from here, and this chain is heavy and grating, and it brings all of the power.
From inside, no fix when you build it on the broken.
here we find the Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza, which has some roots in punk but brings all of the core elements and just blasts them in your face. They also have one child, Candiria, a group hailing from Brooklyn who has a very rebellious streak.
What is precious? I am fine as having sex with God. My blood is something. One will fill your cup. Then will hold you down, spread you up, try you up. Come on.
The Dolly Thundering concept has been consistently putting out bangers for the past decade and isn't afraid to get weird. Last one under Dillinger is Deadlights, who has kind of a spooky and darker atmosphere. The other two Sikth categories starts with Vildharta. That's what I was doing. Okay. And the second branch of Monument, the other two Sikth subcategories start with Vildharta, one of the original pioneers of djent. Then we have Destrage, I think that's how you pronounce that, who has very heavy Sikth vibes, so you should keep an eye on them. Destrage has a child called Darknet, who has some of the sharpest rhythm guitar work on this list. Definitely something to pay attention to if you're really into guitar. So let's say you like the rhythm from Periphery, but you're more into the clean, atmospheric vocals and guitar work. This is where TesseracT comes in. Now, TesseracT has influenced so much of this section that I could probably name 100 bands that have taken themes from them, but today I'll shorten it to a big three. A newer band on the come up lately has been Unprocessed, a band famous for their really clean production and cinematic music videos. I'm sure you guys have heard them already, but I had to include them for those who aren't as familiar with this genre. we can't go without mentioning the Contortionist, whose album Language made a big splash for those who weren't even big fans of metal but were new to the genre. The Contortionist has 2 children. One of them is another hidden gem called the Winter Effect. And when I say hidden gem, I mean truly hidden. These guys only have 12 monthly listeners on Spotify, 5 subscribers on YouTube. I mean, come on, go give them some support because these guys deserve it. Next is Last Chance to Reason. They have some great albums with interesting conceptual themes, some deep, guttural, harsh vocals, nice keyboard work too. Underneath those guys is the Lilac Continuum. These guys actually just released an album this past February. Definitely some Contortionist-esque moments in there, and some of the compositions almost remind me of video game music. Third group under TesseracT is called Johari from Kentucky, a very versatile band to the point where most of their songs actually sound like way different from each other. And under Johari is another djenty up-and-coming band called Fifth Density. So splitting off from Periphery, you can find a band called Corelia. Corelia has been around for a long time, put out a relatively small body of work, but the vocals and song structures and the iconic melodies are enough to give them their own subcategory. Splitting off from here, we have 2 subcategories, the first being Skyharbor. Skyharbor is one of the more iconic progressive metal bands who I think most accurately summarizes the whole category pretty well. If you don't like Skyharbor, you probably won't like any of the bands in this category.
I'm another cold song, reaching for the light.
Skyharbor has 3 children, the first being a band called Fortiori that I found randomly one day while browsing through Bandcamp, and I couldn't believe the quality coming from a band that I'd never heard anyone talk about before. Fortiori has a child called Northlane who is so catchy and fun. It's one of those bands that's perfect for listening to in the car, in my opinion. Textures is another classic band in this category. They've been around for a decent amount of time compared to the other bands on this list, and they've got some really brutal songs out there to headbang to. And if you like that, there's a somewhat more melodic band from London called Exist Immortal. Last one under Skyharbor is a band called Carmen Jaka. They're very melodic with soaring, epic vocals and a love for the atmosphere. Maybe you like things a little more intense and gritty sounding in your djent, but you like some electronic elements and glitchiness thrown in. I would recommend checking out Novalo. I gave Novalo a single child who I think matches their power and aggressiveness. Frostbit is a great addition to the category with some wild squealing guitar work and heavy riffs. And the last subcategory of Periphery is a very, very different band from them. A very, very different band from almost any category on the entire chart that I made. It was hard to find a place to put them, even though they're so iconic. I would almost call them the black sheep of progressive metal. Meshuggah. Now, Meshuggah doesn't follow the core elements mentioned above at all. The only thing connecting it to this category is the raw power and the focus on rhythm. If you're really into deeper, more powerful metal, maybe core-inspired vocals get on your nerves sometimes. I've heard complaints about that before from people. I would recommend a more heavy and, dare I say, manly alternative in Meshuggah. There aren't many bands similar to Meshuggah, but there's a very chuggy band called Car Bomb who loves to play around with the same kind of rhythms. years ago, while venturing through Bandcamp, I found a band called RXYZYXR that was giving away their album LMNTS away for free. So I decided to download it and give it a chance. And honestly, I'm surprised more people don't talk about this album. I think you guys should really give it a listen. It's been over a decade since then, and it still stands on its own. Another very rhythmically insane band is Ever Forthright, who brings just a little tad of the Periphery bands and kind of blends it together with a little bit of the Meshuggah style. And now we have the last band on the list, Terminal Function. It's a deadly ally to this side of the subgenre and definitely has Meshuggah influences in the best way possible.
I told the secret, I'm just a machine, not even a monster. If you can kill me.
And that's the end of episode 3. We are now officially halfway through this list. I am extremely determined to finish this project, no matter what it takes. You guys have been really supportive so far. I know this is a small community, but I'm honored to be putting out content that can bring us together and help you guys find more bands. I will see you guys next time for episode 4.